Hey, what's wrong with this? It's not working. Come on. Hold on. There. Good morning, Philippines. How's everybody? Hello, and how's your weekend? There, it's gone again. I don't know what's wrong with my audio setup. Give me a minute, okay? There. Give me a minute. I need to share this to other page. Again, today is April 5, 2025. Ang bilis ng panahon, my God. We're done with how many months of 2025? Few months from now, we're actually mid, okay, or half of 2025. And you'll be surprised, it's already December 2025. And then a new year is again about to kick in. The question here, what did you do and what did you accomplish for 2025? Me, I don't know. All I know is just to smile, spend money, eat, gain weight. Who cares? Sabi nga nila, you only live once, so you have to make the most of it. So wherever you are right now, stay positive, enjoy life. Make sure that you don't, you're not in a position and you don't have business of hurting other people. I think that's the main thing. And live your life to the fullest. As long as you don't hurt other people, you're good to go. So again, it's April 20, not April 25, it's April 5, 2025. And today is actually the birthday of my sister. Sister, happy birthday! Another year added to your age. I hope you'd be more wiser than last year. So anyway, good afternoon here in Vegas. It's 4:52 p.m. here in Vegas, and I guess it's 8:52 a.m. in the Philippines. No, 7:52 a.m. in the Philippines, almost 8 o'clock in the morning. So what did you eat? What did you get for brekkie? For breakfast, oh my God, what did I miss in the Philippines? I miss chorizo in the Philippines. Chorizo from Banquerohan. I also miss hot dog na tender juicy. I also miss, what else? Corned beef. Yun. And of course, not to mention rice, because rice is life. Rice, and then you put some hot chocolate on top. I don't know if you do that. No. Kumakain ba kayo ng rice na may hot chocolate? Or if not, kape na mini mix? I don't know. I mean, that's weird. Some friends will tell me, John, it's kind of weird. But anyway, so for I think you're able to read the caption. We will talk about burn injury. So I got nothing to do today, so I decided to offer another review program. Just a quick recap about or recall about burn injury. So I will not discuss burn injury in detail. So what I will do is we will talk about the stages or phases of burn injury, and then we will talk about pathogenesis pathogenesis of burn pathogenesis of the burn injury, and of course the fluid resuscitation or fluid therapy for burn injury, paying attention more with your Parkland formula. So anyway, some of my students here are actually watching right now, and thank you to all my students who participated last week when I had my NCLEX review. This is both for the NCLEX RN and the NCLEX PN students from Las Vegas College, Nevada, USA. Thank you so much for joining. And I hope you learned something during that short period of time. And just a heads up, I spoke with our coordinator, and then she told me that I think I mentioned this in class. She told me that instead of getting or having 3 clinicals every week, she will only give me 2 clinicals, and one day is allotted for the NCLEX prep or the NCLEX review. So that's it. And anything special in the upcoming months? Oh, this month I'll be going to Vancouver, Canada. April 25, 20. Was it 25? Hold on. Yeah, it's April 25 to 27. I don't know if you can see that. April 25, 27, I'll be in Vancouver, Canada. And I'll be in London this July 22 to 31. Okay, so July 22 to 31, I'll be in London. April 25 to April 27, I'll be in Vancouver. So for those who are watching right now, who were my students before back in their college days or when during the review for the local board examination in the Philippines, if you are free, kung saan ako pupunta, please let me know so that we can arrange. And then I just want to see you guys. I just want to meet you and just a short chit chat and just to check how's everything and how's everybody. Okay, who do we have now? Who's watching? Let me see. How will I be able to do that? How will I know who's watching? Oh, I can't see it. Oh, here. Big shout out to Samson Bacoro. Have a blessed morning, John. God bless. God bless you too. And he said, Bulad, John. Yes, I miss Bulad too. Pero sa Bulad, mas gusto ko yung yung pinakas. And hello to Jean Olivar. Hi, sir. Shout out from Baroy, Lanao del Norte, Philippines. Na-try ba ni mo ang lechon sa Timuga, sir? Hindi pa. So, most probably no. Once I'm back again in the Philippines, let me know. And I hope I can try the lechon. So, for those who are not from the Philippines, lechon in the Philippines is a big thing. We usually have that if we have big celebration or events. So, that is what we call the roasted pork or roasted pig. Shout out Arellano Boys, John from Davao. Oh yeah, Arellano Boys. Hello guys, kumusta? ¿Cómo estás? Okay, what else? So again, we're ready. If you're ready, that's good. I will not delete this video, so you have a chance to replay, download the video if you want. If you have any questions, feel free. If something is bugging between your ears, feel free to drop a message or send a private message to me, and I will try to answer that the best that I can. Okay. Oh, not this one. Let's share the screen. No, the other one. Perfect. Ano ka tong chair na to? Ang bigat. Anyway, guys, as we go along, if you have any questions or any requests, please let me know. I can see your messages. I can see your comments. I can see your questions. Hey, what is this? Okay, so let's talk about burns. I hope my audio is okay now. Okay. So then ask me, what's your setup, Sir John? Here, so that you know how it looks like. Too bad I can't lower down my screen that much. Okay, so let's talk about burn injury. Another take note burns. A common question here in NCLEX, not actually in NCLEX, it is also a favorite question in the local board examination in the Philippines, especially if you talk about TBSA. So you have there your rule of nines, but I will incorporate that later. Okay, so let's talk about burns. You know what burns is? Burns refers to cell death or tissue death or cell death due to an exposure in an extreme heat. Okay, so the thing to remember here is the longer you expose yourself to the heat source, okay, the more severe, the more bad the effect will be. Okay, for example, if you exposure this area in a heat source for 3 seconds, and then the other one, if you expose the burn area for about 15 seconds, the one with a 15-second exposure will have severe effect than the one with the 3-second exposure. It means to say the longer you expose yourself to a burn source, the more bad the effect will be. Okay. Now, when I say heat source, there are several heat sources that you can identify. First will be a heat source brought about by chemical exposure. So there's such thing as what we call chemical burn injury. Okay, so there's such thing as chemical burn injury. Now, if you incorporate this in NCLEX, okay, if you incorporate this in your qualifying examination, question here will be what will be your priority action? Don't forget this. If the type of burn injury, by the way, is my background music, is the bed so loud compared to my voice, or my voice is so loud? Okay, I'll just lower down the microphone. Please let me know. Somebody drop a message. What is that? Uh, Van Joseph Cañete. Sir Jun, kumusta? Chris Furio. Good morning, Sir John. Good morning, everybody. So I guess some of you are asking, why Sir John and my name is Sander? Yeah, so my previous name was John Gil Ricafort, and then I changed it legally to Sander Ray. So for those of you who are, got used of calling me John, that's fine. And I don't mind that. So you have the liberty to choose what to call me. So let's go back. So we have the chemical burn injury. Let's go back. So I said the longer you expose yourself to heat source, the more severe will be the effect. Now, what are the different heat source? Number one is your chemical burn injury. Now, I said that if a patient had chemical burn injury, one of the most important responsibility here is to wash the area in a running water. Okay, running water. And take note that the common presentation of a chemical burn injury is what? There is what we call liquefaction. So that the tissue will liquefy because of chemical exposure. That is why responsibility here is to wash that, okay, in a running water. Okay, next, another heat source. Okay, another heat source. Hey, where's my. Okay. Okay. Another heat source will be your what? So you have your chemical, we have electric. Okay. So there's what we call electrical burn injury. Now, if you encounter electrical burn injury or electric burn injury, don't forget that the main issue here is the possibility of cardiac arrest. Okay. Why? Remember, if there is exposure to an electric shock, it will disrupt the normal cardiac rhythm. It will disrupt the normal cardiac activity. That is why one of your important responsibility as a nurse, okay, taking good care of a patient who had an electrical burn injury, is to assess cardiac functioning. So when I say assess cardiac functioning, you check for the heart rate, you check for abnormal rhythm, because again, of the risk of having cardiac arrest because of electric shock. Next, another source of heat will be heat out of fire. Okay, heat out of fire. Now, which is very common, right? Which is very common. Now, if you sustain burn injury out of fire, okay, which is very common source, one issue that you need to remember in your examination is inhalation injury. Remember when you inhale, accidentally inhale the carbon monoxide? So there is a possibility of inhalation injury. Inhalation injury. Okay? Now, when I say inhalation injury, the thing you need to remember here is your carbon monoxide poisoning resulting to carboxyhemoglobin. Okay, so there is carbon monoxide poisoning. Now, what is the normal carbon monoxide level in the body? The normal carbon monoxide level in the body is less than 5. Okay, less than 5. Now, greater than 5 is considered carbon monoxide toxicity. Okay, but if you're in your NCLEX, remember that if your patient had carbon monoxide poisoning, your primary responsibility here is to give a supplemental oxygen. Okay, a supplemental oxygen using a tight fitting non-rebreather mask. Okay, so again, a tight fitting non-rebreather mask until such time that the carbon monoxide level drops less than 10%. I know that I mentioned a few seconds ago that the normal carbon monoxide level is less than 5. Okay, but again, in your NCLEX, your goal is to administer O2 using a tight-fitting non-rebreather mask, okay, until such time that the carbon monoxide level of your patient drops less than 10. Remember, there are patients wherein their carbon monoxide level is quite elevated, but not super elevated, slightly elevated than normal, especially for those who are smokers, especially for those who are smokers. Don't forget that. Now, when you talk about carbon monoxide poisoning, which is the reason why a primary concern here for inhalation injury is a condition. What did I say? Carbon monoxide poisoning is a condition called carboxyhemoglobin. What are you talking about? Carboxyhemoglobin. Hemoglobin. Now, can you explain this carboxyhemoglobin? Your carboxyhemoglobin is a condition wherein the blood binds the carbon instead of oxygen. Now, if you can still remember in your basic anatomy physiology that if this is your RBC, okay, this is your RBC or red blood cell, inside the RBC there are molecules or pigments, right? Now, you call these molecules or pigments inside the RBC as your hemoglobin. Okay, your hemoglobin is actually divided into two. What are the two divisions? Not divisions. What are the two components of your hemoglobin? We have the hem and we have the globin. Okay, hem and the globin. But by the way, your hem, the most important component or substance for hem formation is iron. And the most important substance for the globin formation is your protein. Okay, just a side trip topic. That is why iron is essential for the formation of your hem, for the formation of your hemoglobin. That is why if you don't have iron, then Hem cannot be formed. Okay, you cannot form hem without your iron. Without hem, then there is no hemoglobin. So the cause of a decrease in the hemoglobin is due to iron deficiency. You call the problem as your iron deficiency anemia. Now, what about protein deficiency? So if you have a protein issue, a protein issue affects formation of globin, correct? So without globin, no hemoglobin is actually formed. So you call that condition as what? Thalassemia. So don't forget this. An issue with the hem will result to IDA. An issue with the globin will result to thalassemia. Okay, anyway. Now, remember the gases. It is with the hem where oxygen binds. It is with the globin with where carbon dioxide binds. So normally the blood, the RBC, okay, carries two gases, the oxygen and your carbon dioxide. That's the normal thing. That's the normal physiology. Now what happens in your carbon monoxide poisoning is this. In the presence, okay, in the presence of carbon monoxide, remember this, your blood is greatly, let's say, greatly in love, super in love with your carbon monoxide. So what will the blood do is that it will kick oxygen out, okay, and then binds itself with carbon monoxide. So as a result, the blood now, your hemoglobin binds with carbon monoxide by kicking oxygen out and binds with carbon dioxide. So what would happen in your carbon monoxide poisoning or carboxyhemoglobin incidence is that the blood now is rich with carbon. We call that carboxyhemoglobin. Instead, that the blood binds with carbon dioxide and oxygen. In carboxyhemoglobin, you just want to reiterate this, it binds with carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide. So a patient with carboxyhemoglobin, what do you think is its ability to carry oxygen? Well, what happens there is there will be decreased oxygen carrying ability. Decrease oxygen ability, carrying ability. That is why you need to give supplemental oxygen to your patient. Okay. And another thing to remember in your NCLEX, if you suspect carbon monoxide poisoning, refrain from using your pulse oximetry. Okay, don't forget that. Refrain from using your pulse oximetry. Why? Your pulse, you'll be surprised that if you put the pulse oximetry to your patient's finger, you will have a normal O2 saturation. Okay, remember the normal at O2 saturation is 95 to 100%. But in reality, it's not oxygen. Okay, it's your carbon. Okay, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide. It means to say that when you put the pulse oximetry, that gadget thought that the being monitored there, being evaluated there is oxygen, where in fact it's not oxygen. So therefore, okay, when you say pulse oximetry, it will check presence of gas, binds with your hemoglobin, binds in your blood, but it will not identify what type of gas binds with the blood. Okay, that is why if you suspect carbon monoxide poisoning, do not refrain from using pulse oximetry because the result is unreliable. Okay, and what else? Of course, another source of energy, another source of heat will be sun. So there's such thing as what we call sunburn. So see, these are the different sources of heat that can cause burn injury. Okay, now I hope that's clear. Now let's proceed. There are several stages or phases of burns. Okay, let's proceed now. Okay. So what are the different phases of burn injury? The first phase of burn injury is what we call emergent phase. Okay, your emergent phase happens immediately upon injury in the blood vessel of your patient, upon injury in the tissue. The second phase is what we call your shock phase. Shock phase. Okay, now why do we call it shock phase? We call it shock phase because this is the phase or stage of burn injury wherein shock is very common. Okay, it's very common. So tell me, when will shock phase happen? Okay, this phase or this stage occurs, it occurs on the first 24 to 48 hours. Okay, it occurs on the first 24 to 48 hours of injury. That is why if you will be asked in your NCLEX, what is your priority on the first 24 to 48 hours? Hold on, let me check. I'm making sure that I'm still online and I have a good screen. Okay, now let's proceed. Now, what is your priority on the first 24 to 48 hours? Your answer is prevention of shock. So, how will you prevent shock? To prevent shock, okay, what you do is fluid resuscitation or fluid replacement. And we will discuss that later on. Okay, now thing to remember in your shock phase is the fluid shifting. Okay, tell me, what do you think is the movement of fluid on the first 24 to 48 hours? The movement of fluid is actually plasma to interstitial. Plasma to interstitial. Other book, we call that as your intravascular fluid to extravascular fluid. Do not forget this in your NCLEX. You put an asterisk because this is a famous and a favorite question, especially if you will encounter this in your select all that apply. Sometimes you'll be asked select all that apply, what are expected fluids and electrolyte imbalances during shock phase or on the first 24 to 48 hours. Take note, it happens on the first 24 to 48, and the movement of fluid is plasma to interstitial. So let's identify what are the different fluids and electrolyte imbalances during shock phase. Okay, let's identify. Let's say that this is your blood vessel. Okay, this is your blood vessel. So the fluid inside the blood vessel is your plasma. This is your plasma. And this is your interstitial. Remember that your plasma can be seen inside the blood vessel. That is why we call it as an intravascular fluid. It means to say a fluid inside the vessel. Your interstitial can be seen outside the blood vessel. That is why you also call interstitial as your extravascular fluid. It means a fluid outside the vessel. Okay? Now, inside your blood vessel is your blood. A component of your blood is your plasma. I hope that's clear. Okay? Now, inside your blood vessel, okay, is your blood. So let's say you have your RBC here. Okay? Now, if you can still remember, if you can still recall, the most abundant electrolyte inside the cell is your potassium, which is a form of a positively charged electrolyte. And the most abundant cation or positively charged electrolyte outside the cell is sodium, positively charged. That is why I have a mnemonic here, and we call that as your PSO. What is PSO? Potassium inside the cell, sodium outside the cell. So why is this essential? Okay, you will know that in a bit. Remember that a patient with burn injury, there is exposure to extreme heat. Because of exposure to extreme heat, extreme heat, extreme heat, it destroys the blood vessel wall. So once the blood vessel wall is destroyed, it increases its permeability. So you will have an idea, a permeable blood vessel will result to fluid shifting. Okay, what else? Because of exposure to extreme heat or heat source, it also destroys the cell. It causes cell lysis or cell injury. So once the cell is injured, okay, once the cell is injured, potassium gets out. So there is release of electrolyte from the intracellular to extracellular because of injury. Okay, so I hope that scenario is stored inside your brain because that will help you identify the different fluids and electrolyte imbalances. Okay, so let's start now. During shock phase that happens on the first 24 to 48 hours, because of a recent exposure to extreme heat, it damages the blood vessel. So once the blood vessel is injured or damaged, I said it increases permeability. So because of increased permeability, the fluid gets out. What is the movement of fluid? Plasma to interstitial. Here, remember, the movement is plasma to interstitial. When that fluid gets out, what will happen to your blood volume? It decreases. So first is your hypovolemia. a decrease in the blood volume. That is why do not forget to include this in your select all that apply. Now, if this hypovolemia is not treated, it can progress to hypovolemic shock. That is why we call it shock phase, because shock is common due to movement of fluid, which is plasma to interstitial. Next, letter B. Since the fluid gets out from the blood vessel, what happens to your blood? The blood becomes concentrated because the water gets out. So you call that condition as your hemoconcentration. Concentration. Okay, question. What specific laboratory test will help identify that the blood of the patient is concentrated? Your answer is hematocrit. Sometimes in NCLEX, it will not tell you the exact term hemoconcentration. It will just give you laboratory values. So what will be the result of your hematocrit if the blood is concentrated? Okay, if the blood is concentrated, expect that the hematocrit is elevated. Okay, you have an elevated hematocrit. Now, I forgot to mention, what about hypovolemia? How will you know that the patient is having hypovolemia? What specific parameter or test will give you have an implication of hypovolemia? The answer is your CVP. Okay, your central venous pressure. What happens to your CVP if you have hypovolemia? Answer, a decrease in your CVP. Okay, next, letter D. Another problem. Remember, I said that sodium is most abundant outside the cell. So if there is increased permeability of the blood vessel due to injury and water gets out, guess what? Sodium also gets out together with the water, together with the fluid. So when sodium gets out from the blood vessel, what happened to sodium level in the blood? It decreases. So this will result to hyponatremia. Okay, why did the patient on the first 24 to 48 hours develop hyponatremia? The cause is fluid shifting. Okay, next, letter E. Remember that there is cell injury. Remember this? And this cell injury will result to what? Release of potassium from the intracellular to extracellular. So this potassium inside the cell will get out. Why? Because of injury in the cell due to heat exposure. So when potassium gets out, potassium in the blood increases, resulting to a condition called hyperkalemia. So see, you have several items to identify in select all that apply, select all that apply for patient on the first 24 to 48 hours of burn injury. Next, letter F. Because of a decrease in the blood volume, okay, this will also result a decrease in the blood pressure of your patient. Because of a decrease in the blood volume, it will also result to what? Decrease in your tissue perfusion. Because of a decrease in your tissue perfusion, decrease blood flow to the kidneys. Okay, a decrease in your renal perfusion will result to a decrease in the patient's what? Urinary output. Okay, a decrease in the renal perfusion will result to decrease GFR. That is why you have a decrease in your urinary output due to decrease in the glomerular filtration rate. So if your patient is not peeing adequately, do you think the waste products in the body can be eliminated, can get out? No, it cannot. That is why, okay, expect that part of the imbalance or imbalances you will notice to patient with burn injury is that there will be an elevated what? BUN and creatinine. Okay, because of poor perfusion. And because of poor perfusion to your liver may sustain injury or damage. That is why you will also expect an elevated liver enzymes of your patient. So when I say liver enzymes, I am referring to your what? I'm referring to your AST, ALT. Okay, what else? Because of a decrease in the blood volume, hemoconcentration, expect that what letters we know? F, G, H, what? I don't know how to write the alphabet. And I don't know if I'm the only one when I write the alphabet, I need to sing. Okay, DEFGHIJ K. Okay, letter K. Patient may also have urine concentration. So the urine of the patient is concentrated. What specific test will tell you that the urine is concentrated? Answer: urine specific gravity. Okay, so what will be the result in your urine specific gravity? It's elevated. So don't forget that. When the urine specific gravity is high, it means to say that the urine is concentrated. If your hematocrit is high or elevated, it means to say that the blood is concentrated. So your hematocrit will reflect concentration dilution of your blood. Your urine specific gravity will tell you about the concentration and dilution of your urine. Okay, please do not forget this. And you can also include here, Al, patient with burn injury, especially on this shock phase, may also develop metabolic acidosis. Metabolic acidosis. So how will you know that there's metabolic acidosis? There will be a decrease in the pH and there's a decrease in your HCO3. What is HCO3? This is your bicarbonate. Okay, so please do not forget this different fluid and electrolyte imbalances. But of course, I also included some factors that are not fluid and electrolyte imbalance. But I just want to include that just in case. Okay, you'll be asked in your examination. So these are changes or concerns that you will encounter on the first 24 to 48 hours of burn injury. We're talking about shock phase. Why? Because the movement of the fluid is plasma to interstitial. Let's proceed. What is the third phase of burn injury? The third phase, okay, the third phase of burn injury is what they call diuretic phase. Other book, it's not diuretic phase. Other book, they call this as fluid remobilization phase. Fluid remobilization phase. Okay, question. When will it occur? Diuretic phase or fluid remobilization phase happens when 2 to 5 days post-burn injury. What? It happens 2 to 5 days post-burn injury. Okay? And take note, look at the movement of your fluid. What do you think is the movement of your fluid here? The movement of your fluid is the total opposite in your shock phase. So if in your shock phase, the movement is plasma to interstitial, this time it will be interstitial to plasma. See? Or we call this as your extravascular fluid to intravascular fluid. So if you notice, okay, if this is the blood vessel of your patient, okay, this is your plasma and this is your interstitial. Remember? So whatever that came out a while ago during shock phase, okay, this time it goes back to your vascular compartment. It means to say that the fluid this time will go back to its vascular compartment. That is why we call it fluid remobilization phase. There is mobilization of fluid back to where it originally belonged, back to where it originally came from. Okay, now same with your shock phase, we need to identify the different fluids and electrolyte imbalances as well. Okay, this is very important for your select all that apply. Okay, don't forget. Okay, please pay attention in your NCLEX if they emphasize 2 to 5 days post burn or first 24 to 48 hours, because sometimes they will not tell you what phase of burn injury. They will not use the term shock phase or diuretic phase. They will give you figures, they will give you numbers. Okay, so please be cautious. Okay, will this specific phase or phases occur? So let's identify. When the fluid now from your interstitial, okay, goes back to your vascular compartment, what will happen here is it increases the blood volume. So we call that as it causes hypervolemia. And we know for the fact this hypervolemia, it increases your CVP, which is the opposite of hypovolemia. Remember, in hypovolemia, there is a decreased CVP. Next, letter B. When fluid gets back, okay, enters your vascular compartment, okay? When fluid enters the vascular compartment, what happens to your blood? Your blood is filled with water. So from hemo concentration, this time it's the opposite. It causes what? It causes hemodilution. Okay, what specific test will confirm or okay indicate hemodilution? A decrease in your hematocrit. Okay, so I hope by this time you'll be able to identify, because I've been explaining it several times, like few minutes ago. D. Next, what about the sodium? Will there be hypernatremia or hyponatremia? Remember, during shock phase, when fluid gets out from the vessel, it brings sodium out, causing hyponatremia. So you know the reason why hyponatremia happens on the first 24 to 48 hours. But what about this time? 2 to 5 days post-burn, will there be hypernatremia or hyponatremia? Will there be hypernatremia or hyponatremia? The correct answer is hyponatremia, not hyper. Oh, so you mean to say on the first 24 hours, hyponatremia. 2 to 5 days post-burn, still hyponatremia. Correct. Why? Why do we have hyponatremia 2 to 5 days post-burn? The cause of hyponatremia here is not due to sodium deficiency. The cause of hyponatremia is not related to fluid shifting. The cause of hyponatremia, when I say fluid shifting, I'm referring to your plasma to interstitial. Okay? The cause of hyponatremia here is a fluid shifting from interstitial to plasma, causing hemodilution. In short, the cause of hyponatremia is water toxicity. Because of too much water that fills the vascular compartment inside your blood vessel, it dilutes the sodium out, okay, causing hyponatremia. So if you think it that way, if a person drinks a lot of water, if you drink a lot of water causing water toxicity, you will end up having hyponatremia too. Correct. That is why anything that is too much is not good. Anything that is too less is bad. Can you analyze? Can you think of it like, if you don't drink water, you'll end up dehydrated. You'll have dehydration. If you drink too much water, then you will also end up having hyponatremia. See, anything that is in excess is not good. So I hope you get the point. Next, letter E. Letter E. Now, because of an increase in the blood volume causing hypervolemia, okay, expect that there be an increase in the blood pressure of your patient. Okay, next, letter F. Patient during diuretic phase, because of increase in the blood volume, increased BP, it will also increase your what? Glomerular filtration rate. An increase in the glomerular filtration rate will result to an increase in the urinary output of your patient. That is why we call it diuretic phase, because the patient will keep on peeing. You pee a lot. So can you imagine that because of fluid shifting, when water enters or fills the vascular compartment, okay, your compensation here and one response of the body is to pee a lot. Why do you have to pee a lot? To prevent congestion. Okay, next, letter H. Letter H. Now, what about your potassium level? What about your potassium level? Remember, prior to this phase, there is hyperkalemia, correct? What happens 2 to 5 days post-burn is that those potassium ions that went out or got out from the cell, this time they have to return back into the cell. So potassium now will get inside the cell, decreasing potassium in the blood. So here you will end up having hypokalemia. So don't forget this. Okay, don't forget the electrolyte imbalances. Okay, so these are common changes or things to remember or issues that you have to consider 2 to 5 days post-burn. Okay, and in the fourth and last phase of burn injury is what we call rehabilitation phase. Rehabilitation phase. Other book, it's not rehabilitation phase. Other book, they call this as your convalescent phase. Question: when will rehabilitation phase or convalescent phase begins? Okay, this phase occurs when diuresis is completed. Okay, so just a rundown. There are four phases of burn injury, or four stages. The first phase is what we call the emergent phase, that happens right, okay, immediately after injury, exposure to the heat source. The second phase or second stage is your shock phase, that happens on the first 24 to 48 hours. The movement of fluid is plasma to interstitial. The third phase or third stage is your diuretic phase or fluid remobilization phase. This phase happens 2 to 5 days post burn. And take note that the movement of fluid will be interstitial to plasma. And the last phase is what we call rehabilitation phase or convalescent phase. And this phase will only kick in when diuresis is completed. Okay? And what else? I mentioned that on the first 24 to 48 hours, your priority is prevention of shock. So how do we prevent that? With fluid resuscitation. Fluid resuscitation. Now, if you're going to read the book about burn injury and its management, there are several ways or approaches to do fluid therapy. Okay, there are several ways how do we resuscitate patient. We have the Parkland formula or the Baxter formula. We have the Evans rule, the Brooks formula, the hypertonic formula. There are several ways. Take note, they are all effective, but the most common formula being used is your Parkland formula. Okay, the most common formula used is your Parkland formula. Okay, now when I say Parkland formula, take note, this is a formula used when on the first 24 hours. Okay, used on the first 24 hours, especially to patient, okay, with second or third degree burn or patient with a major burn injury. Okay, used on the first 24 hours, and it is indicated to patient with second degree or third degree burn, especially with a TBSA of greater than 25%. Remember, in the TBSA, what is TBSA? TBSA stands for total body surface area. That is the area that has burn injury or affected area. So if it is greater than 25%, that is considered to be a major burn injury. Okay, since we do fluid therapy, what solution do we use for your Parkland formula? What we use here is your plain LR or your lactated Ringer's solution. Okay, your lactated Ringer's solution, your plain LR. By the way, your plain LR is an isotonic solution. Okay, next. So how do we compute for Parkland formula? So the Parkland formula is this. Okay, the formula is this. It's 4 ml, multiply that by TBSA, and multiply that by what? Weight of the patient in kilograms. Okay, so don't forget, this is the formula. 4 ml, 4 is constant. TBSA. So take note, if you want to get this formula correctly, make it sure that you were able to compute the TBSA correctly. So that is why you need to know by heart the rule of nines. And what about the weight in kilograms? It's very simple. If in your actual NCLEX, they give you or they use a different unit, usually they use pounds, you have to convert that into kilogram. Remember that 1 kilogram is equivalent to 2.2 pounds. Okay, so if they use pounds, you convert that to kilogram. Okay, now how do we do fluid resuscitation? So in your Parkland formula, Okay, 1/2 of the solution is used. Okay, 1/2 of the solution is used on the first 8 hours, and the remaining half or 50% of the solution is used when? Used in the next 16 hours. That is why if you're going to total 8 plus 16, that's 24. So this is actually your fluid therapy on the first 24 hours of a patient with a second or third degree burn with a TBSA of greater than 25%. Okay, so let me give you an example. Okay, example. Okay, example. Let's say we have a patient named Josh. Okay, Josh, who is, let's say, 43 years old, male patient. And take note, let's say he weighs 80 kilograms. Okay, sustained burn injury on the following sites. Okay, what are areas with burn injury? Let's say right anterior, upper extremity. And let's say patient sustained burn injury where anterior trunk. Okay, now in your rule of nines, okay, please be cautious if they use the term anterior, posterior, upper extremity, lower extremity, extremities. So take note about the location, if it's upper, if it's lower. Please take note of the side, whether it's front or back. Please take note if it's singular or plural. If it's extremity, only one, extremities, that's plural. Okay, so with your rule of nine, how many percent TBSA will be the right upper extremity? Remember, each extremity is 9%. The whole upper extremity, remember extremity, singular. Whole upper extremity is 9%. Both upper extremities, that will be 18%. So if each extremity is 9%, how many percent is the anterior side only, anterior part? That's 4.5. Correct? So this will be 4.5. Now, what about anterior trunk? So when I say anterior trunk, that includes your chest and your abdomen, okay? Front, anterior. So anterior trunk is actually 18%. Hey, 18%. So what do you think is the TBSA? Your TBSA is what? What is 18 plus 4.5? That will be 22.5, correct? That will be 22.5. Okay? 22.5. So following your formula, 4 ml times percent TBSA times weight in kilograms. So this will translate into 4 ml, multiply that by 22.5, multiply that by 80. Okay, so let's see. Oh, by the way, when I say 22.5% TBSA, do not convert that into whole number like okay, 0.225. Okay, as is. If it's 22.5, that's 22.5, not 0.225. Okay, so what do you think is the product? 4, multiply that by 22.5 times 80. Can you compute? Hey Alexa, what is 4 multiplied by 22.5 multiplied by 80?
4 times 22.5 times 80 is 7,200.
Okay, let's say that Alexa is correct. It's 7,200 ml. So this is the total volume will be given to your patient on the first 24 hours. You have to give 7,200 ml of LR on the first 24 hours. The 50% of this is given on the first 8 hours, and the remaining 50% is given over the next 16 hours. So what is 50% of 7,200? So if you divide this into 2, what do you think is the quotient? Hey Alexa, what is 7,200 divided by 2?
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
Oh my God, you don't know how to divide? Hey Alexa, what is 7,200 divided by 2? That's 35. I think that is
7,200 divided by 2 is 3,600.
So that will be 3,600. So the 50% is 3,600. So you have to give 3,600 here on the first 8 hours and another 3,600 ml over the next 16 hours. So if you will be asked in your NCLEX, how many ml will be given on the first 8 hours? The answer is 3,600 ml. How many ml is the total volume given over 24 hours? Answer, 7,200 ml. But if you will be asked, what is the running rate of fluid on the first 8 hours? So take note, you have to give 3,600 over 8 hours. So what will you do? How many ml?
Something went wrong. Try again in a few minutes.
I'm not talking to you, Alexa. So how will you get the running rate of your fluid? So what you do is 3,600 divided by 8. Okay, Alexa, what is 3,600 divided by 8?
3,600 divided by 8 is 450.
So the running rate is 450 ml per hour on the first 8 hours. Over the next 16 hours, how much will this be? I think this will be 225. Am I right? 225
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
ml per hour. Alexa, what is 3,600 divided by 16?
3,600 divided by 16 is 225.
Oh God, I'm so genius. So don't forget this. If you'll be asked how many ml per hour will be given, will be the running rate over the next 16 hours, the answer is 225 ml per hour. Okay, so I hope this one is clear. So we call this as your Parkland formula, or I forgot to mention, another name for this is Baxter formula. Okay, I hope you learned something, guys. So that ends my short video presentation about burn injury, paying attention more on the phases of our stages of burn injury, and of course, our fluid resuscitation. Hold on. Okay, who do we have here? Hello to Mom Veronica Real. Thanks for watching. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. I hope you learned something, and hope to see you soon in the next few days. And yeah, don't worry. From time to time, I'll go live just to give updates and do some NCLEX free tutorial. God bless everybody. Keep safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.